and welcome to Shelley Cooks. Today we're going to be trying a recipe that's new to me. I found this one actually online, so I'm going to give it a try, and it's for Hawaiian rolls. Now, Hawaiian rolls are something that I think they're fairly new in Canada here. They've been in the US for a long time, and they may have been here. Maybe I've just only recently in the last few years been seeing them a lot. But often people will use these to make sandwiches that they'll put deli meats on, or cheeses in between, I should say, and they'll top it with garlic and butter or something like that, and then put them in the oven. So what I'm hoping to do is to come up with a successful recipe for Hawaiian rolls that I can make at home. And then what I want to do is to turn it into a breakfast sandwich, in one in which I'm able to freeze. So let's get started on this recipe and we'll see how it comes out. So what makes this recipe unique is that it's a very sweet roll, and it's actually made with pineapple juice, which is, I guess, the reason why it's called Hawaiian rolls, I'm assuming. So what we have here is, let me see, it's an odd number, 354 grams of pineapple juice, which I've heated up because you have to activate the yeast, right? So I've heated this up. 354 grams is an odd number. Normally, that's for, you won't find that for liquid measurements, but I have it here, and it's actually about 1 2/3 of a cup. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting this in our mixer. So to that, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of white sugar. We're going to put in this 2 tablespoons of white sugar, which is, you would think the pineapple juice would be enough, right? And we're going to add 4.5 teaspoons of yeast, active yeast. So this is 1 tablespoon, which is 3 teaspoons. So that's 3 teaspoons. Here's a half, and here's 1. So we have our 4 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, so I'm just going to let that sit for 5 minutes. It says 15 minutes, but there's no way I'm going to let that sit for 15 minutes, mostly because I'm impatient. The other thing that I'm going to try differently with this recipe is that with this recipe here, what they propose, or what they say you should do, is to mix all of your ingredients together and then set your bread aside to double in size. I never do that when I make my bread. What I do is, once I have a part of my flour mixed in, what I'll do is I will set it aside then and let it sort of ferment for about 15 minutes. And then I'll continue with the rest of the recipe and add the rest of my flour. And then when it's just the way I like it, the dough is a little sticky and that sort of thing, all the ingredients have been in, and I have let it beat with the dough hook for about 6-7 minutes. What I do then is I shape my bread immediately and give it one rise. And I've always been successful with that. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be successful with it this time with these Hawaiian rolls. So as I said, we'll see. If it is a success, I'll share the recipe with you, or the video, I should say, with you. And as always, the recipe will be below. This is not my recipe, I should say. This is one that I have found online. So I'm going to let this just sit for, oh, I can already see that my yeast is already rising. So I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients, and I'm going to bring you a little closer so you can see it as it's happening. Okay, you can see how active this yeast really is. As I said, it's going to town here. So what I'm going to add into this next is going to be our 2 eggs. So I'm just going to crack these here and put these in. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in 2 eggs. I'm going to now add in some of my vanilla. I'll show you this actually. I hope you could see it. This is my vanilla I put down last year, and first time using it. I'm getting ready to get it ready for gifting and jarring it up to give some gifts to folks. It looks amazing. So we're just going to add a teaspoon of vanilla to that, vanilla extract. And we're going to get this started, but first we're going to start off with the paddle. And then we'll switch to our dough hook. Let's just bring this up just a bit and start it off. Just to get this mixed up just a bit. To this, we're also going to add 113 grams of butter. That's at room temperature. Now, this isn't going to mix into this right now. This is really too cool to do that. But once we get our flour in, it will start then to break up and to work into the flour then. And we're also going to add the remainder of our sugar in this and get this started. Now, the recipe that I found online actually called for 134 grams of sugar. And you break it up, you put the first, take 2 tablespoons out of that, and you mix it with the pineapple juice and yeast, which we did. However, instead of 134 grams of sugar, I actually reduced that sugar down to 100, because I really think that 134 is way too much. Even though we want a sweet roll, we don't need it that sweet. So now I'm going to begin to incorporate just a little bit of my bread flour, by the way, which is what I'm using here. So let's just start putting a bit of that in. Now once this starts coming together a bit, I'm going to then switch to my dough hook. I'm really focusing the camera on the bowl because I want you to see the texture of this bread as it comes together. So let's remove this now and put in our dough hook. Okay, so there's more flour there. In total, we should end up with about 5 or 6 cups of flour. But as I always say, it's more important that you look at for the texture versus the measurements. You should know what to look for in your bread. So this is getting nice and wet. And it's not going to be too dry, which is what we need. Okay guys, so now it's getting to the point where pretty soon once all that flour that I put in is stirred in, I'm just going to stop it. And there. So I just leave it in this bowl, put my arm down, and I do this. Remove that a bit so that I can sit a dinner plate on top of it. So I'm just going to sit that dinner plate on top. I'll leave that there for 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, we'll come back and you will see how it started to ferment. This I do in place of giving it a first rise after it's all been mixed. So we'll come back. Okay, guys, so it was a little cool here in the house, so it's fall and I have my windows open. So it wasn't rising after 5 minutes, so I put it in the oven on proof. It finally did start to rise a bit, so now we're good to go. So as you can see around the bubbles around the corners with the flour, so you know that it has started to ferment, which is what we need. Hopefully this will work out as well with this recipe as it does with the others that I normally do. So I'm just going to continue adding more flour, and I'll turn it on here. And when we get to, so far I've probably added about 4 cups of flour. But when we get to the consistency that I want you to see to look for, more importantly than the amount of flour, I'll bring you back and we'll see it then. So here we can see that it's still very wet. So I'm going to add some more flour. Again, I just want to point out again that this is bread flour, but I'm sure if you do not have bread flour, all-purpose would be just fine. So what we're looking for is we're looking for it to get to the point where it's still quite wet yet. You can see on the bottom there. But what we are looking for is we are looking for it to get to the point where there is no longer any wet flour or wet batter on the bottom. And all of the dough that's around the bowl has pulled away and the bowl is pretty much clean. So when we reach that stage, and we're just adding a bit of flour at a time, because if we add too much flour to the recipe, our bread will be very dry. So at the end of this process, we need to make sure that our bread is still it's tacky. It's not wet, but it's tacky, and there's nothing around the sides of the bowl. Okay, we're definitely getting closer. This is definitely more of what we are looking for. I think you could see where the flour has come from the bottom of the bowl, the batter I should say, and it's cleaning the bowl. So now at this point I'm going to set my timer for, I'm going to do 5 minutes on 2. I'm going to reduce that to 2 and I'm going to do 5 minutes. I almost forgot to mention, I almost forgot to add, I have a teaspoon of sugar, I almost forgot to add that I have a teaspoon of salt there. And I almost forgot to add it in, but it's not too late at all. So it's doing its 5-minute thing, and it's got the teaspoon of salt added into it now. I'll put it back down to 2, and it's got 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. Okay guys, our dough is done. It looks beautiful. And now I am just going to take it out and shape it. So according to the recipe, we should get 12 to 18 large rolls and 24 smaller ones. So because I want to make breakfast sandwiches with these, I don't want large rolls, I'd rather the smaller ones. So I'm actually going to weigh these out individually. Look at that. You can see how nice that dough is. It's still a little bit sticky, but I don't even need flour on the surface here. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful dough. It's nice and soft and pliable. Okay, so what I have here is I have a 9x13 cake pan that I've lined with parchment paper. I have my oven set to proof. And I think I'm hoping I'm going to need another one of these pans. And now I have to decide how big I want each of these rolls. And yes, I will weigh them out individually just to see. Okay, that's 73. That's quite a good size. It looks small, but it's actually a good size. Okay, when that doubles in size, I think I'm going to go for 70 for each of them. And let me get them all cut up here to 70, and then we'll come back and I will show you how easy it is to shape them. Okay guys, so I have the first pan shaped. It says to put 12 rolls, according to the recipe, it says to put 12 rolls in a 9x13 pan and the other 12 in the second pan. I've never spaced my rolls this far apart, but I am going to try it this time and we'll see what happens. I have my parchment sheet here. I needed a second pan because I am making them a little bit smaller. But gee, if they fill this pan, they're not going to be small, not by any stretch. But we'll see what happens. It's all about testing the recipe anyway. So we'll see. So I cut the 4 corners so that I could fit it in the pan easily. And then I just kind of run my finger along the edge to kind of hopefully keep it in place. Now, if you're going to take a little while, one thing I have noticed is that you may want to cover these up with a dishcloth, a clean dishcloth or something. So how I shape my rolls, it's really easy. I just take my roll and I hold it in my hand like this, and then just sort of go like this, tuck the end under like a little ball. The other thing you can do, which I do as well, is just cup your hand a bit. Just put your hand in a cup and put the dough in the palm of your hand and turn it in a circle, and it'll give you a perfect roll every time. So either way, you can try either one of them. Okay, I will normally, as I said, just tuck them under a little bit and roll it. I didn't get quite the 24 that the recipe said, but I'm totally fine with that. I may not have added the same amount of flour that they added, or for various reasons, or maybe mine are a little bit larger than the recipe. By the way, these are each 70 grams, 70. And there we go. And it's going to be a nice size roll. It's not going to be tiny, but it will be a nice size roll. I think I could very well, and I may swap this out for a 9x9 pan because I have fewer than the recipe had called for. So instead of the second 9x13, I think I'm going to swap this out for a 9x9 cake pan. And that should work out well with that. So after I finish shaping all of these, have my oven on proof, bread proofing, I should say. And what I do is I will put a little bit of avocado oil on the top of these. I'll take another piece of parchment paper and put on top. And on top of that in the oven, I will take a clean dish towel and dampen it. I actually really soak it. And then I wring it dry, or as dry as I can. And I cover the pan up then. And that allows a lot of moisture in the oven while the dough is rising. So I'm not quite sure how long this is going to take to come to a rise until they're doubled in size. But when it's ready to go in the oven, we'll come back and I'll show you what they look like. We'll see how full they get or how much they rise. So I'm just going to show you how I prepare these rolls for the oven. I'm just putting maybe a teaspoon of avocado oil in the palm of my hand. And I'm just dabbing the tops of these. And this is just to make sure that the paper doesn't stick to it. Even though it's parchment paper, it really can, and it has. So I've learned my lesson. I'm going to ball this up to keep it from rolling away when I put it on. Otherwise, it would just be all over the place. Do the same with these. And these I will reuse to line pans later. Okay. There we go. This here is my clean dish towel that I have just wet. And then I wrung it out as much as I could. I'm going to pop this in the oven, both of them. As I said, the oven is on proof. Make sure they stay covered with the parchment paper, which I can guarantee you, had I not crumpled them up, they would not have done so. And let's get this. I may have to pull this out as I normally do. And make sure we get them all set up and comfy. Perfect. There we go. So we'll leave those until they've doubled in size, and then we will come back and bake them in a 350 oven. Before we go, there are a couple of things I wanted to say. First of all, if you don't have bread flour and you decide to use all-purpose flour, it will work perfectly. The only thing is that when you swap the two out or you interchange the two, bread flour has more gluten, so it's a stronger flour. So you'll have to add more of the all-purpose flour, maybe for this recipe, maybe a cup or so at the most. But because I showed you the texture you're looking for, or what you want your dough to look like when you finish, just add the all-purpose flour until you get your dough at that sort of consistency where it's still tacky, it's cleaned your bowl completely, and but it's not dry. So make sure when you add your flour that you add it gradually as the dough is finally getting to the point you want. The worst thing you can do is to add too much flour. Your bread will be really dry. So just a couple of little tips. Okay guys, the rolls are, I think they've pretty much doubled in size. They're looking pretty good. So I have set my oven to 350 and I'm going to bake them off when the oven temperature hits. It's supposed to be for 20 minutes. So I will let you see them when they come out. Well guys, these are our rolls, Hawaiian rolls. I think they came out beautifully. I don't think they suffered any by not giving them the first rise after they were mixed. Doing it the way I normally do it, which is the 15 minutes, and then continuing on and just shaping them and bake them, seemed to work just fine. I have a little piece here that they're really warm, and normally I won't try bread when it's really warm, but it's late, I'm hungry. Somebody has crumbs in my butter, which drives me insane. Wow. Yeah, it's late. I need to go to bed, I think. But before I do, I really want to try these. Let me try. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, that is so good. That is so good. You can't really taste the pineapple. They're sweet. I think reducing that sugar a bit was a wise idea. I think these are going to make a fantastic breakfast sandwich. If I decide to do it soon, I'll do a video on the breakfast sandwiches for you. These are amazing. I mean, these are really good. Yeah. Wow. They may be my new favorite white roll. I wonder how they would be with some fresh ground, using freshly ground flour. Sorry, talking with my mouth. That was delicious. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. If I decide to do the breakfast sandwich soon, I will, with these, I'll do a video for you. But this is definitely worth a try, and they're very easy to make. No more difficult than any other bread. If you have a KitchenAid, it's super easy. So thanks so much, everybody, for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.